Advisory. Some episodes of the 1836 podcast are not intended for all audiences due to details that might be considered disturbing. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
This episode of the 1836 podcast shares the legacy of Glen Andrews, a pioneer of professional fishing. The sun had barely crested the Ozark Hills, casting a golden flickering over Bull Shoals Lake, when Glen Andrews shoved off from the dock in his weathered boat. It was the early 1950s, and the lanky man from Lead Hill, Arkansas, had already mastered the water, his hands toughened by farm labor and his eyes sharpened from years of reading ripples. Born on May 31st, 1931, to Earl and Ruth Andrews on a modest farm in Boone County, Glen was the third of 7 children, raised in a world where hard work had been as natural as breathing. Few could have predicted that his passion for fishing would shape his life and lay the foundation for professional bass fishing. Glen's journey began not with a rod and reel, but with the land. As a boy, he had helped his father tend crops and trade coon dogs, learning the rhythms of nature that later guided him on the water. After graduating from Lead Hill High School in 1950, he cleared timber for the newly forming Bull Shoals Lake. When the lake filled, the Lead Hill Boat Dock hired him as one of its first guides, marking the start of a 15-year career that saw him navigate Bull Shoals, Table Rock, and Beaver Lakes for about 300 days a year. Those long days honed his instincts, teaching him to read the subtle signs of bass fish behavior, how they moved with the seasons, where they hid in deep channels, and what lures could coax them from the depths. His mentor, Joe Lindsay of Harrison, spent 5 years coaching Glen almost daily, sharing secrets of structure fishing and lure presentation that set him apart. Glen later described Lindsay as the greatest bass fisherman he had ever known, a debt he repaid by mentoring others without charge. By the early 1960s, Glen had become a regional legend. His reputation as a guide drew clients eager to learn from the best. His prowess shone brightest in the fledgling world of fishing tournaments. In 1962, he won the Missouri State Championship. He claimed 2 more in 1963 and 1965. That same year, he secured the Arkansas State Championship, proving his dominance across state lines. The World Series of Sport Fishing, a national competition that tested anglers on multiple species, became his proving ground. Glen was runner-up in 1962 and 1963. But in 1965, on Lake Tawakonee in Texas, he clinched the championship, repeating the feat in 1966. He remained the only angler to win 2 of those titles, a testament to his skill in an era when tournaments offered prestige but no prize money. Glen's brilliance lay not only in his trophies but in his innovation. In 1955, he founded Andrews Lure Company in Lampe, Missouri, later moving it to Rogers, Arkansas. At its peak, the company employed 15 workers and produced 9 different lures, including the stinging lizard, twin spin, and the flitter tail slip sinker worm kit, now known as the Texas rig. Inspired by lure designers O.L. and Dave Hawk, Glen was the first to package plastic worms, hooks, and slip sinkers with instructions, revolutionizing bass fishing. Though he never patented his designs, allowing replicas to flood the market, his lures shaped modern tackle. He also pioneered the use of topographical maps to locate bass, a technique that became standard but was groundbreaking in the 1960s. Glen's influence extended beyond the water. He wrote a syndicated column, Angler's World, for the Springdale News and authored Techniques of Bass Fishing, a manual used to teach classes across Arkansas and the Midwest. His trick casting exhibitions at sports shows, where he flicked lures with pinpoint accuracy, drew crowds and showcased his charisma. His greatest legacy, however, was his mentorship. He guided young anglers like Bill Dance, Bobby and Billy Murray, Jerry McInnes and Ray Scott, sharing knowledge freely, Bill Dance, a Bass Fishing Hall of Fame inductee, credited Glen with teaching him to read water and use electronics, calling him my mentor, my friend, my advisor. Bobby Murray, a two-time Bassmaster Classic champion, dubbed him the first true professional bass angler. Jerry McInnes, host of the Fishin' Hole, declared him simply the greatest bass fisherman he had ever known. In 1967, Glen played a pivotal role in the birth of modern bass fishing. When Ray Scott, founder of the Bass Angler Sportsman Society, visited Glen's office in Rogers, he enlisted Glen to help organize the All-American Invitational on Beaver Lake, the first BASS tournament. As rules chairman, Glen crafted strict guidelines to ensure fairness, rules that continue to govern tournaments. He also recruited competitors, but as a local guide, he was not eligible to compete. That same year, he became president of the Professional Sports Fishing Association, a nonprofit modeled after the PGA, aiming to elevate angling's status. By 1968, financial pressures forced Glen to step away from the sport to support his family, and the organization crumbled without him. Glen's retreat from the spotlight was abrupt. After selling Andrews Lure Company to Billy and Bobby Murray in the late 1970s, he began living a quiet life. For many years, he gave no press interviews, but his story was preserved in the memories of those he mentored. His impact, however, endured. In 2009, his son Shane Andrews and Jeremy Miller published the book, An Impossible Cast, Glen Andrews and the Birth of Professional Bass Fishing, a book that revived his legacy. In 2010, Glen was inducted into Gary Mason's Legends of the Outdoors National Hall of Fame. And in 2023, he was honored by the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame at Johnny Morris's Wonders of Wildlife Museum in Springfield, Missouri. At his induction, Glen joked about Bill Dance as his promising student, drawing laughter from fishing luminaries like Rick Clunn and Kevin Van Dam. He continued to fish Bull Shoals in his 90s, his memories of catches as vivid as ever. His life stood as a testament to skill, generosity, and resilience. A man who never chased fame but left a permanent mark on a sport he helped create. Glen Andrews, the unsung titan, cast ripples that touched every angler who dropped a line.